Throughout my life, I've often heard the advice given, let your conscience be your guide. And the purpose of this advice is to encourage individuals to think about the alternatives for a given situation and make the right choice for the right outcome. At times, this may be good advice, but only assuming that the conscience has been properly trained to know what is right and that which is wrong. A child taught to trust in self for making decisions may grow into adulthood only referring to self instead of sources more credible for decision making. In attempts to point out an error to a person, a popular response is, but it feels right. Now, how can something feel good and not be right? Well, the emphasis is usually upon how the person feels and what their wants are, instead of looking for a standard for guidance. Solomon made the observation that there may be a way that seems right, but the end consequence is death, Proverbs 16 and verse 25. The task, in essence, in determining what is truly right and therefore a standard that is constant and sure, is one that we must be searching for. If one declares that they will act according to a standard of self, they make a declaration that self is reliable and perfect. But the prophet Jeremiah said, O Lord, I know the way of man is not in himself. It is not in man who walks to direct his own steps. Jeremiah 10 and verse 23. But it's easy to note the dynamic nature of man. For this fundamental reason, man is not able to accurately direct his own steps in true righteousness without an external source to set a fixed standard. Man is able to change his mind, and what may seem right today may not seem right tomorrow. But in contrast, God is static and has set the standard and will not move from it. This static nature of God allows the creation of a static standard. James said that there is no variation or shifting of shadow in God, James 1 and verse 17. And just as God is unchanging, the things that God states is true will also be unchanging, John 17 and verse 17. And this is made manifest with the examples of the messages given by angels in Hebrews 2 verses 1 through 4. If the message of angels were sure, how much more would the words of an unchanging God be? Friends, changing the message causes confusion. It causes disorder and chaos and unrighteousness. It causes variances and dynamic flows of moral activity, which by nature is contrary to God, 1 Corinthians 14 and verse 33. But what God calls for is peace, which is only produced from the standard which He has given. And knowing that there is a static standard is not enough until it is identified and then followed. Investigating will show the identity of the standard as the gospel of Christ. Standards are used to make judgments, and it is the gospel that will judge man, John 12 and verse 48. God will judge man justly based upon man's actions in light of the gospel. The fixed nature of God and His Word yields perfect, impartial judgment. Even as society and its views may change, the standard of right and wrong is one that will remain fixed and unalterable. Now, what feels to be right can in fact be wrong. While there are areas of opinion which can allow for multiplicity of acceptable actions, what is under discussion today is only using self as the standard. It can be hard to determine if a matter is just a matter of opinion. However, opinion is not the default or catch net for every question that comes along. Diligent studying of the standard of God will show if we can use our own opinion or if God has already stated what is acceptable to Him. In the end, actions cannot be justified by simply saying that it feels right. If actions can be justified by self alone, then right and wrong become subjective and relative. In this circumstance, judgment of any kind becomes impossible. anything and everything would be justified and judgment cannot be exercised. But in reality, though, truth is established and preserved by God forever. 1 Peter 1 and verse 25.
The Noble Searcher is a ministry of the Pyburn Street Church of Christ. And we thank you for joining us for our study today. If you have any questions or requests for lesson topics, please feel free to email us at Pyburn Street, that's Pyburn Street, at gmail.com. Or you can write to us at Pyburn Street Church of Christ, Post Office Box 187, Pocahontas, Arkansas, 72455. Friends, we thank you for being with us today, for studying God's Word with us, and we encourage you both today and every day to search the Scriptures daily.